The arrival of the unknown. It was a day like any other on Earth. People going about their lives, cities humming with activity, and the world seemed at peace. But that would change in an instant. No one could have predicted what was coming. The sky, clear and blue, suddenly flickered. A strange distortion rippled across the atmosphere, like a wave spreading through water. At first, people thought it was just a glitch, maybe a satellite malfunction. But then, without warning, the heavens were torn open. Massive ships appeared in the sky, blocking out the sun. They were unlike anything humanity had ever seen, monstrous structures of steel and energy, as if they had come from another world. The ships moved with eerie precision, slowly descending toward Earth's major cities. The air crackled with the sound of their arrival, and soon, the world knew that this was not a simple visit. The Galactic Council had arrived. People stared up, frozen in fear and confusion. Some tried to record the sight on their phones. Others ran in panic, but the ships hovered silently, waiting. Then came the broadcast, a message sent from the largest ship in the sky. The voice that spoke was cold, calculating, and distant. It was not one human had ever heard before. It wasn't even in a language anyone could recognize, but somehow it was understood. The voice spoke of the greatness of the alien empire and demanded Earth's immediate surrender. A warning followed. Earth's future would depend on the response. The message sent shockwaves across the planet. Governments scrambled to react. Military leaders gathered emergency councils, trying to figure out what this meant. People across the world turned to their televisions, radios, and the internet. Some feared an invasion. Others hoped it was just a misunderstanding. But deep down, everyone knew something serious was happening. In major cities, emergency alerts flashed across screens. Panic spread quickly as people rushed to shelters, some hoping to escape the coming conflict, others eager to understand what was happening. The alien ships remained motionless in the sky, their weapons clearly visible but unused. Humanity had no answers. No one knew what these beings wanted or why they had come. But there was one thing that was certain. The fate of Earth was now in the hands of these unknown invaders. General Marcus Steele stood before his screen, watching the message replay. He was a man who had seen his fair share of threats, but nothing like this. His eyes narrowed. The Zorax Empire, whoever they were, would soon realize just how wrong they were about humanity. He knew one thing for sure. Earth had faced problems before, and Earth had always fought back. Still, the odds were against them. The Zorax Empire was massive. Their fleet had been seen approaching Earth at an impossible speed, and the technology they wielded seemed far beyond anything humans had developed. In a matter of hours, the world had been thrown into chaos. But Marcus was not one to give in easily. The screen in front of him flashed with emergency reports. Entire cities were on alert. World leaders were debating whether to surrender or fight, but no one seemed to have an answer. It was all too much to take in. How could they stand a chance against these invaders? But then, something strange happened. As the world watched, the Zorax fleet began to move. The enormous ships lowered their weapons, preparing to strike. A moment of silence passed, and then, a loud booming sound echoed across the globe. The ground trembled as if the Earth itself was reacting to the alien presence. People screamed as the cities were rocked by shockwaves. The Zorax ships opened fire. But to everyone's surprise, the attacks weren't as devastating as expected. The cities didn't fall immediately, and humanity fought back in ways no one thought possible. Military forces, though unprepared, launched counterattacks. Air forces scrambled into action, launching jets and missiles toward the massive invaders. The fight had begun. General Steele's voice echoed over the communication lines, calling out orders. Don't give up. Fight for Earth. His words were simple, but they carried weight. This was the moment to prove to the galaxy that humanity would not just kneel before invaders. As the first few hours of battle unfolded, the Zorax realized something. Humans were not as helpless as they had assumed. Their weapons were powerful, their ships strong, but humanity had something the Zorax did not: an unbreakable will to survive. In the heat of battle, a human fighter jet managed to land a hit on one of the alien ships, sending it spiraling out of control. The Zorax were caught off guard. Their technology had never expected such a fierce, unpredictable response from a planet they had considered primitive. But it was only the beginning. The Zorax ships regrouped, preparing for a larger assault. Earth's military, now fully awake to the reality of the situation, braced for more. In the midst of the chaos, as humans fought back with everything they had, General Steele knew one thing: Earth was not ready to give up. Not today, not ever. And as the aliens looked down on the planet they thought they could easily conquer, they began to realize the truth. Humanity was not just another world to crush. It was a force that could not be underestimated. This was only the beginning. The battle had just begun, and the invaders would soon learn that humans would fight to the very last breath. The unexpected resistance. The moment the alien ships descended, the world was thrown into a state of panic. Cities trembled under the weight of alien technology, and nations scrambled to form a plan. But as the dust settled, one thing became clear: the invaders had underestimated humanity. While Earth's military forces were unprepared for such an advanced assault, the human spirit was something the invaders didn't account for. People weren't just running in fear, they were fighting back. It wasn't just soldiers that rose to the challenge, but civilians too. The determination in the eyes of ordinary people was as sharp as any blade. On the streets of New York, General Marcus Steele and his team watched the unfolding chaos from the command center, deep underground. The first wave of alien strikes had done significant damage, but something unexpected happened. Humans didn't cower. They fought, and that first resistance spark had caught the aliens off guard. "This is not the response they expected," said Captain Sarah Williams, scanning the real-time data. The Zorax had sent their strongest forces, yet their attacks were far less effective than expected. It seemed as if every missile, every bomb launched from Earth's defenses was being met with resistance from human ingenuity. The Zorax had assumed Earth was primitive, that humanity was divided and weak. They thought it would be easy to crush Earth's defenses, quickly and decisively. But what they didn't understand was that Earth was a place where every human, no matter how small or weak, fought for survival, and they would stop at nothing to defend their home. Across the world, resistance forces were growing. From the jungles of South America to the deserts of the Middle East, people rallied together. Soldiers worked side by side with engineers, hackers, and even farmers. Earth's strength wasn't just in its military, it was in its unity. In London, an elderly man named Charles Jones had never held a weapon in his life, but that didn't stop him from joining the fight. His hands, weathered with age, gripped the rifle tightly as he stood next to young soldiers, ready to defend his home. "We don't give up," he muttered under his breath, his voice steady. "Not now. Not ever." The first real breakthrough came when a group of hackers, led by the brilliant Maya Singh, managed to infiltrate the Zorax's communication systems. The humans had their first look inside the alien network. What they saw shocked them. The Zorax, while technologically advanced, had left gaps in their security, gaps the humans quickly exploited. With every piece of information they uncovered, humanity became more dangerous. "We have to keep pushing," Maya said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "We can't let them regroup. We have the advantage now." They thought we were weak. They were wrong. In the middle of the chaos, General Steele issued a command to all human forces: hold your ground. Show them what it means to be human. We don't retreat. We fight. As the days passed, it became clear that Earth wasn't just surviving. It was fighting back in ways the Zorax had never imagined. They had expected a swift victory, but instead, they were facing an enemy that adapted quickly, learned on the fly, and fought like there was no tomorrow. One of the most unexpected developments was the way Earth's military coordinated with the civilian population. Scientists, engineers, and even students contributed, using their creativity to come up with new tactics and tools. Human ingenuity was on full display, and every small victory only fueled the determination of Earth's defenders. Back in the command center, Steele watched a video feed from a battle in the heart of Paris. A small group of soldiers, led by Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes, had successfully disabled one of the Zorax's advanced weapons. The mission had been dangerous, and they had lost several soldiers, but the impact was undeniable. The Zorax were beginning to lose control over their assault. "This is just the beginning," General Steele said to his team, his voice firm. "The Zorax thought they could crush us. Now we show them how wrong they were." The Zorax, once confident in their superiority, were starting to feel the pressure. The tide was shifting, and Earth was ready to prove that it was not a world to be conquered. It was a world that would never surrender. Across the globe, humanity's resolve grew stronger. The aliens had underestimated them, and now they were beginning to pay the price. What had started as a battle for survival was quickly turning into a war that the Zorax would not soon forget. The turning point. The war between Earth and the Zorax had reached a crucial juncture. The initial shock of the alien invasion had passed, and now the world was in full-scale conflict. What the Zorax had expected to be a quick victory had turned into a protracted battle. Earth's military forces, initially disorganized and unprepared, had gained momentum, and it was becoming clear. Humanity had a hidden strength the invaders couldn't comprehend. In the heart of the United States, General Marcus Steele was briefing his top commanders. The situation had changed drastically in the past week. No longer were they merely defending. Humanity was starting to push back. "We're no longer reacting to their moves," Steele said, his voice sharp. "We're starting to dictate the pace of this war. It's time we take the fight to them." Across the globe, humanity's response had become a unified force. People from all walks of life had come together, using every resource available. The world had become a single unit, each nation contributing what they could to the resistance. And now, they had a weapon that would shift the balance of power, the human will to survive. Maya Singh, the brilliant hacker who had infiltrated the Zorax communication network, sat in front of a massive screen, her eyes scanning the latest data. "We've uncovered something big," she announced. "The Zorax have a fleet stationed on the edge of the system. If we can take them down, it will be a devastating blow to their forces." Steele's eyes narrowed. The Zorax fleet was their last line of defense, and if it fell, Earth would have the advantage. The plan was simple: use Earth's newly developed weapons and ingenuity to strike the fleet before they had a chance to retaliate. "Prepare the strike force," Steele commanded. "This is our chance." The plan wasn't without risk. The Zorax fleet was heavily protected, but Earth had something the invaders didn't count on: human creativity. Using a combination of Earth's best weapons, hacked alien technology, and improvised tactics, humanity had created a force capable of launching a surprise assault. Back in Paris, Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes and her team were readying their own mission. They had successfully disabled one of the Zorax's key supply lines, and now they were tasked with infiltrating one of their most secure facilities. The Zorax were getting desperate, and their defenses were beginning to show cracks. "This is it," Lieutenant Hayes said, looking at her team. "We can do this. We've taken down their weapons before. This time, we take down their entire fleet." As the plan to strike the Zorax fleet took shape, there was an undeniable shift in the air. Humanity's morale was higher than ever. The enemy, once confident and smug, now faced the reality of human resilience. The Zorax hadn't anticipated the speed with which Earth adapted and fought back. The human forces assembled in secret, preparing for the biggest strike of the war. Across the world, military bases were buzzing with activity. Soldiers and engineers worked together in unprecedented coordination, setting up launch systems and readying weapons. It was an all-out effort, driven by a singular goal: to cripple the Zorax once and for all. In an underground facility in the middle of the Sahara Desert, Sarah Williams and her team of engineers worked tirelessly. They were the masterminds behind a new weapon, something Earth had never seen before, a weapon capable of taking down an entire fleet in one fell swoop. The Zorax never saw it coming. "We're almost there," Sarah said, adjusting the controls. "This is going to change everything." The strike force launched with military precision. For the first time since the war began, the Zorax found themselves on the defensive. The surprise attack from Earth's combined forces hit them hard, overwhelming their systems before they could react. On the battlefield, the humans fought with unparalleled determination. The Zorax's advanced technology, which had once been so superior, now seemed slow and inefficient in the face of human tactics. The Zorax were beginning to lose ground, and they knew it. "We've got them on the run," General Steele shouted, watching the battle unfold. "Keep pushing forward. Show them what we're made of." The Zorax, stunned by the human resistance, scrambled to regroup. Their once imposing fleet was now crippled, and the fear of defeat loomed over their commanders. Back on Earth, the people could feel the tide turning. News spread fast, and for the first time in the war, there was hope. People cheered in the streets, not as a sign of victory, but as a testament to the power of their unity. Humanity had come together in a way the Zorax never imagined possible. In the midst of the chaos, Maya Singh smiled as she watched the data feed. "We did it," she said softly. "We really did it." The strike on the Zorax fleet marked a turning point in the war. It was no longer just about survival, it was about victory. And the Zorax, for the first time, truly understood the depth of the mistake they had made in underestimating humanity. With their fleet crippled, the Zorax were forced to fall back. But humanity wasn't done yet. Earth had made its mark, and now, with the taste of victory, humans would stop at nothing to drive the invaders from their planet. The Battle of Wills. The momentum Earth had gained from their surprise strike on the Zorax fleet had given rise to a new sense of purpose among humanity. The taste of victory was sweet, but it had only fueled their determination to go further. The Zorax, on the other hand, were forced to face the reality of a war they had underestimated. Now, every move they made was met with a swift, coordinated response from Earth. Across the globe, the sense of unity among humans was stronger than ever. The idea of defeating the Zorax, once thought impossible, was now a tangible goal. People in every corner of the world were mobilizing, their resolve hardening. Humanity was no longer fighting to survive, it was fighting to win. In the heart of the United States, General Marcus Steele and his top commanders gathered around a large table, their faces grim. They had received intelligence that the Zorax were preparing to launch a counterattack, one that could potentially turn the tide in their favor. The Zorax had pulled back to regroup, but they were far from defeated. "We can't afford to let them recover," Steele said, his voice firm. "If we wait too long, they'll be able to rebuild and strike back with full force. We need to hit them again, and we need to do it fast." The commanders nodded in agreement, understanding the gravity of the situation. The Zorax were cunning and ruthless. A counterattack could mean the difference between winning the war or losing everything. But Earth had something that the Zorax never expected: resilience. Maya Singh, still hard at work hacking into the Zorax communications, had uncovered a crucial piece of information. The Zorax were preparing to launch a massive assault on Earth's capital cities, intending to strike fear into humanity. They planned to target the major communication hubs, cutting Earth off from its global network. Without communication, Earth would be thrown into chaos, and the Zorax would have the upper hand. "We have to stop them before they reach Earth's cities," Maya said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "I've pinpointed their coordinates. If we strike them now, we can prevent their attack from happening." General Steele looked at the map on the screen. The Zorax were moving fast, and if they didn't act quickly, their strike could cause irreparable damage. But Steele wasn't about to let Earth fall back into a state of fear and uncertainty. "Prepare the airstrike," he commanded. "This is our chance to crush them before they even get close." The forces on Earth had already proven their ability to surprise the Zorax, and now it was time for another unexpected move. With the element of surprise on their side, Earth's military forces launched a full-scale counteroffensive. The Zorax were going to pay for underestimating humanity's resolve. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes and her team were leading a daring mission to infiltrate the Zorax command center. They had to find the source of the invasion's coordination and disable it once and for all. The mission was risky. Zorax security was tight, and any misstep could lead to disaster. But Hayes had become known for her ability to get the job done, and her team trusted her every move. "We have one shot at this," Hayes said, adjusting her helmet as she looked over her team. "We get in, we disable their command systems, and we get out. No room for error." The team nodded, and with a quiet, determined resolve, they moved out, sneaking through the shadows of enemy territory. They would have to rely on every skill they had learned over the years, their training, their quick thinking, and the knowledge that they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. Back on Earth, the world watched as the next phase of the war unfolded. The news channels broadcasted updates, and the people's excitement was palpable. With every passing hour, the hope of victory grew stronger. Humanity was united in its fight, and the strength of their collective will was starting to show. In space, Earth's military forces engaged the Zorax head-on. The skies were filled with the sounds of battle. Explosions, laser fire, and the hum of spacecrafts cutting through the void. The Zorax were fierce opponents, but they were no match for humanity's determination. As the battle raged on, a sense of awe spread across the human forces. They had come so far, but this was the moment that would define the war. Could they finish what they started, or would the Zorax come back stronger than ever? Maya's voice crackled through the comms as she spoke to Steele, her voice full of urgency. "General, we've located their command center. It's time to make our move." With a firm nod, Steele gave the order. "This is it. Everyone, give it everything you've got. The Zorax will not stand after today." The final assault on the Zorax command center began. Earth's forces surged forward with everything they had. On the ground, in the air, and in space, humanity fought with every ounce of strength they possessed. It was the culmination of everything they had worked for: the hope, the determination, and the fight to protect their home. As Earth's military forces clashed with the Zorax, the tide of battle slowly began to shift. The Zorax had underestimated humanity at every turn, and now they were about to pay the price. For every mistake they had made, Earth had a solution. For every advantage they had, humanity found a way to turn it against them. The battle wasn't over yet, but the Zorax were realizing the magnitude of their mistake. The once unstoppable invaders were being overwhelmed by the sheer force of human will. And as the battle raged on, one thing became clear: humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The turning point. The battle raged on, and the air was thick with tension. The Zorax, once confident in their invincibility, were now struggling to maintain control. Earth's military forces, emboldened by their recent victories and the support of their people, were proving to be a force unlike anything the Zorax had ever encountered. The moment of truth had arrived. The final blow would either shatter the Zorax's dominance or push humanity to the brink of annihilation. General Marcus Steele stood at the helm of Earth's flagship, his eyes fixed on the chaotic battlefield. The Zorax had been relentless, but Earth's resolve had become unshakable. Every decision, every maneuver, and every sacrifice had brought them to this moment. "We're on the edge, people," Steele said into the comms, his voice steady but filled with the weight of what was at stake. "This is where we either finish this or risk everything." The atmosphere on the flagship was tense. Commanders and officers moved swiftly, coordinating final strategies for the assault on the Zorax command fleet. The forces were exhausted, but the resolve to protect Earth was stronger than ever. Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes and her team were deep behind enemy lines, infiltrating the Zorax Command Center, where the fate of the war would be decided. The team's mission was simple yet dangerous. Disable the core systems of the Zorax fleet, leaving their forces vulnerable to the approaching human assault. "We're almost there," Hayes whispered to her team as they crept through the corridors of the alien ship. "Keep your heads low and stay focused. One wrong move, and we're dead." Every creak of the ship's metal hull sounded like a thunderclap in the silence of the team's stealth approach. The Zorax had a reputation for being ruthless, and Hayes couldn't afford to be complacent. They had already lost too much. It was time to end this war. Back in space, the battle escalated. Earth's fleet was making its final push against the Zorax, and the tide of the war was slowly shifting in humanity's favor. The Zorax had tried to regroup, but they were no longer as coordinated as they had been. Their attacks were disjointed, their tactics no longer as efficient. The very thing that had once made them seem unbeatable was now their greatest weakness, their arrogance. Maya Singh, still at Earth's command center, had decoded the final communications from the Zorax. Their leadership was in disarray, and their flagship was vulnerable. The time to strike was now. "This is it," Maya said, her voice crackling through the comms. "We have a window. If we move now, we can disable their flagship and take down their entire command structure." Steele didn't hesitate. He gave the order to launch a full-scale offensive on the Zorax flagship, hoping to finally break the back of the enemy's leadership. Take them down. For Earth. The human fleet, now fully mobilized, surged forward with unmatched determination. Ships flew in synchronized patterns, laser fire lighting up the black void of space. It was a testament to human ingenuity that they had turned the tables on the Zorax, who once thought they would crush Earth without breaking a sweat. But humanity wasn't done yet. The final push came from a surprise weapon. The newly developed Phoenix missiles, a top-secret project designed to penetrate even the toughest Zorax shields. They were humanity's last card, and they were ready to be played. As the Phoenix missiles were launched toward the Zorax flagship, the atmosphere was electric. Time seemed to slow as the missiles hurtled through space, targeting the weak spots in the Zorax's defenses. The humans knew this was their moment. If they hit their mark, the Zorax would lose their final stronghold in the war. At the same time, Lieutenant Hayes and her team were inside the heart of the Zorax command center. The complex, alien technology was overwhelming, but they had one goal: disable the core and leave the enemy helpless. They planted the last explosive charge, and Hayes activated the countdown. 10 seconds, she whispered. The countdown echoed in the team's comms. Each second felt like an eternity. If they failed, the entire mission would be for nothing. Back in space, the Zorax flagship had detected the missile launch. It began to turn its massive guns toward the incoming threat, but it was too late. The Phoenix missiles had already breached the defenses, and with a deafening explosion, the flagship erupted in flames. The shockwave rippled through space, and for the first time, the Zorax were thrown into disarray. The humans had done the impossible. They had destroyed the heart of the Zorax fleet. Their command structure was now in ruins. On Earth, celebrations erupted. People could hardly believe the news. The unthinkable had happened. The Zorax, who had once believed themselves invincible, were now retreating. General Steele looked out over the battlefield, watching as the last remnants of the Zorax fleet attempted to flee. But it was no use. The human forces had won. Back at the Zorax command center, Lieutenant Hayes and her team made their escape, the explosive charges detonating in a blaze of destruction. Their mission was a success, and the war was over. The Zorax had underestimated humanity one last time, and now they would pay the price. As the final remnants of the Zorax fleet disappeared into the stars, humanity stood victorious. The war was over, but the price had been high. They had lost so much along the way, but they had gained something far greater: the knowledge that they could stand against the universe and come out victorious. The aftermath and the price of victory. The silence that followed the explosion was deafening. The once imposing Zorax flagship, now reduced to a smoldering wreck in space, seemed to echo the end of an era. The human fleet had done it. They had struck down the unshakable force that had once made the Zorax the most feared empire in the galaxy. But even in victory, there was no sense of celebration, no triumphant fanfare. The cost of war had been steep, and the scars would remain for years to come. On Earth, the world had watched in awe as the news of the Zorax defeat spread. But as the celebrations began, the reality of the situation began to set in. The war was over, yes, but at what cost? Families mourned the loss of loved ones. Cities that had once been thriving centers of life now lay in ruins. The Earth had been ravaged, the human spirit tested to its absolute limits. General Marcus Steele stood on the bridge of Earth's flagship, staring out at the void of space. His hands were clenched tightly behind his back, the weight of his decisions hanging heavy on him. The battle had been won, but it had taken everything. Tens of thousands of soldiers, pilots, and civilians had given their lives. The war had changed Earth forever. "We did it," Captain Jonah Michaels said, walking up beside Steele. "We won. Against all odds, we stopped them." Steele nodded slowly, but his eyes were distant. "Yes, we won. But the cost, it's something we'll never forget. We can never forget." The human fleet began to pull back, its forces weary but victorious. The Zorax might have been defeated, but there was no way to undo the devastation they had wrought. Earth was scared, and humanity was forever changed. In the months that followed, Earth began the painful process of rebuilding. Cities that had once stood tall now lay in ruins, their structures barely recognizable after the devastation of war. The population, though united in victory, had been forever marked by the horrors they had witnessed. Lieutenant Rebecca Hayes, who had played a pivotal role in the final assault on the Zorax, stood at the site of what had once been a bustling city center. The remains of what had been an advanced metropolis were now little more than piles of rubble. The buildings that had once touched the sky now stood broken, their shattered remains reflecting the state of the world. "We can rebuild," Hayes whispered to herself, though the words seemed hollow. How could they truly rebuild after everything they had lost? She was not alone. All across the globe, people were trying to find meaning in the aftermath. Many had lost family members, friends, homes. Some were angry, others were numb, but all were affected by the brutal war that had just ended. Humanity had been tested, pushed to the brink of extinction, but they had survived. The Galactic Council, once so confident in their superiority, had been forced to acknowledge humanity's strength. The Zorax had underestimated Earth, thinking they could crush the human spirit and conquer the planet with ease. But they had learned the hard way that humanity would never be defeated. Yet, as the dust began to settle, the truth became clear. While the Zorax were in retreat, the universe had not forgotten the war that had just been fought. The Galactic Council, stunned by the audacity and courage of humanity, knew that Earth's victory would not go unnoticed. The events of the war would ripple through the galaxy and other species. Some who had once thought of humans as insignificant would now be forced to reconsider. Maya Singh, back at the command center, was reviewing the data from the final assault. The Zorax may have been defeated, but their fleet was not the only threat Earth had to worry about. The battle had sent a clear message to the rest of the galaxy. Earth was no longer a planet to be underestimated. It was a force to be reckoned with. "We've made our mark, haven't we?" Maya said, staring at the final report on the Zorax defeat. "But we can't let our guard down. There will be others who will want to test us." General Steele had already made the decision. The war was over, but the fight for Earth's place in the galaxy was far from done. The victory over the Zorax had proven humanity's strength, but it had also made Earth a target. The universe had seen what humans could do when pushed to their limits. "We will stand ready," Steele said, his voice resolute. No matter who comes next, we will be ready. The final days of the war had passed, but the war for Earth's future was just beginning. As Earth began to rebuild, the story of the Zorak's defeat spread throughout the galaxy, becoming a legend in its own right. The tale of a species that had underestimated humanity, and the consequences of that mistake, would be passed down through generations. Humanity had emerged victorious, but the road ahead was uncertain. They had earned their place in the stars, but the cost of that place was high. A new era begins. Months passed, and the echoes of the war faded, replaced by a new determination. Earth had not only survived, it had emerged stronger. Though the scars of the conflict remained visible across the planet, humanity's resilience was now undeniable. The victory over the Zoraks was not just a military triumph. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, bravery, and an unyielding spirit that no empire could ever break. In the ruins of the once great cities, new foundations were being laid. Human ingenuity, paired with the lessons learned from the war, began to reshape the world. What was once lost in the conflict was now being replaced with hope and possibility. Technology advanced at a pace never seen before, fueled by the urgency of recovery and by the need to protect Earth from future threats. But as humanity stood tall, the galaxy was watching. Earth had sent a clear message, one that reverberated through every corner of space. We are not a species to be underestimated. We will fight, and we will win. The Galactic Council, still reeling from the shock of their failed conquest, knew their position had forever changed. The power dynamics in the galaxy had shifted. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Council was unsure of their control. Earth's victory had proven that humans were no longer just a backwater planet. They were a force that had to be reckoned with. The Council had underestimated humanity's potential, and now they had to contend with the consequences of their arrogance. General Marcus Steele, though proud of the victory, knew that Earth's fight was far from over. We've made a mark on the galaxy, but the real battle begins now. We've shown that we can fight, but can we maintain peace? Can we ensure that Earth remains safe? We're no longer just a target for one enemy, we're a target for many. And I won't let our people forget what we've learned. We have to be ready for whatever comes next. The idea of maintaining peace after such a catastrophic war was daunting. Yet, it was a challenge humanity was determined to meet. No one knew exactly what the future held, but one thing was certain. Earth would never go back to the way it was. No longer would humans be seen as weak or insignificant. The galaxy would remember the battle, and humanity's courage would never be forgotten. As General Steele looked out across the horizon of Earth, where once there had been nothing but destruction, now there was the beginning of a new era. The galaxy might not have expected humans to survive, but now it would have to reckon with a planet that had triumphed. The Zoraks might be gone, but humanity had just begun to write its place in the stars. For those who had lived through the war, the message was clear. The future would not be without its challenges, but they had the strength to face them. And the galaxy would know, forever, that humanity would never back down, no matter the odds. In the vast reaches of space, a new chapter in the story of Earth had begun. The war was over, but Earth's place in the cosmos had only just begun to unfold. As human ships ventured out into the stars, humanity's legacy of resilience, ingenuity, and strength would inspire countless others. The victory over the Zoraks was just the beginning. Earth was no longer a planet that others could ignore, and humanity was no longer a species that could be defeated. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now it would never forget the power of the human spirit. The story of Earth's victory would live on, not just as a tale of war, but as a testament to the enduring strength of the human race. And the universe would always remember, humans had faced the impossible, and they had won. The future was theirs for the taking. And with that, Earth stepped boldly into the next chapter of its destiny, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that, no matter the odds, they would always rise again.